Okay, welcome back to Brothers in Depth. Today I'm joined for a conversation that I think is going to be alive, interesting, informative, amongst many other things. Because I'm joined here by Jason Seeman. He is the creator of Raising Fathers. He has platforms, coaching and mentoring all along the idea that when a father fully shows up, relationships thrive, parenting thrives, and the whole family unit does. So, Jason, so happy to have you here today. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And we just met about 10 minutes ago, which makes this conversation even more interesting. But already in that short 10-minute conversation, there was so many overlaps, not just in ideas and the work that we do, but also even the people we know. And fatherhood, being a father, supporting men that are fathers is so dear to me. And I'm curious in your case, what turned you on to this? Like, when did this become such a raging purpose and passion? I'm curious in particular if it was before, like you had any inklings before you became a father, or was it the bomb of fatherhood going off that enlivened it in you?
Beautiful question. Thanks. I'm already excited for this, and it's just begun, which is actually my answer, by the way, that question. It's both. So to assist fathers, support them, certainly came after the bomb dropped. But I think what was unique to me was even as a young boy, sort of 11, 12 years old, the day I was most excited about in my life was the day I became a father.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was just so clear to me. And I think I didn't quite have the language for it, but deep in there somewhere, I felt like my real entry to manhood was when I'm a dad.
That's fascinating to have that calling so young.
Yeah. I only recognize that it's rare now. Yeah.
There's only maybe 2 or 3 other men that have even known they wanted to be fathers when they were that young. And this is kind of an aside, but it's a curiosity. Why is it you think you had that? Was it an experience that you had? Was it something a little more mystical? But it's rare that men could be so connected to their purpose so young. What is it about you and that situation that led to it?
So firstly, I'm very lucky. I grew up in a home, no parents are perfect. And my parents did a really good job. And with their imperfections, something I always grew up knowing was that I was loved. I always knew I was loved, which again, as I grow older, I'm recognizing is a genuine privilege, even though it should be a right. It's a privilege and it's rare. I think that would have contributed is that I had emotional safety with my parents in a sense of I know I'm loved. And so that allowed me to receive the love that was apparent and obvious from them. Even little things like, and I hope my dad sometimes tunes into the episodes. I hope he does hear this. If not, I'll tell him. I remember we used to travel a lot for my dad's work. He's a doctor and would sort of lecture internationally. So we got to go to some pretty interesting countries and places. And I remember we were sitting in I can't quite remember if it was a hotel or a restaurant, but we were sitting there having a drink with this other doctor that he knew. And I would have been, I don't know, 10, 12, something like that. And my dad, I would have been preteen because, anywhere between 8 and 10. And my dad had his hand on my neck and was kind of like gently stroking my neck and my hair. And I remember the man said to my dad, "Oh, I'm so jealous. My son would never let me do that. It's so beautiful that you have such affection with your son." And that I didn't realize that had stuck with me until I just said it now. I haven't said that before, but I remember in that moment actually feeling for that man, because for me, it was normal that my dad gave me physical affection. And I clearly see now, right? It's so still, even now in our generation that is growing so beautifully, physical affection from a father to a son that I very rarely see in public. But my dad was all about it. Oh, it's a nice thing to come out.
Man, thanks for that window. That's such a beautiful moment in time. And I love these retrospective looks into where we are and why we are. So you had this call when very young, and then you have these moments. I'm sure there's many others, but that's such a poignant one. And that went along until you had your first child, who is how old now?
5.5.
5.5. And the second one is?
3.
3. And it's just 2, right?
Yeah.
So far.
For now. Yeah.
And then you had your first baby. I presume you're doing some other kind of work. And then something happened where you're like, shit, I can help and I have to help. What was that Was that a gradual thing or was that a moment in time as well?
Yeah, so it was a moment in time and it was both. So first personal moment in time and then a more service oriented moment in time that kind of led to the bit you're getting to around like when did it start? The first bit was my own. I work in the rite of passage space, so I'll use some of that language. One of the most obvious rites of passage is birth, especially for a child and the mother. The child's head is literally descending down a birth canal or passageway into physical existence. And I think it's broadly recognized now that it's a rite of passage for women as they go from maidenhood to motherhood, tick. And I think if we, intellectually, and what I'm about to say now sounds bleedingly obvious, but it's a rite of passage for men into fatherhood. And I knew that intellectually. My daughter happened to be born during the first COVID lockdown here in Melbourne, Australia. So it was a time of change for everyone. But I remember requesting from some of my close friends, I said, hey, I'd love some ceremony for me prior to the birth to kind of usher me into fatherhood. And I was semi-working in the space and had some familiarity at the time, but not as much as I have now. But I had some awareness that it was important to ceremonialize this transition. And I said, you guys organize it. All I want to know is I want fire and I want ice involved. You guys do the rest. And they were starting to plan, and then COVID hit and it never happened. I can now, in retrospect, see the poetic beauty of all of it. But I got my rite of passage ceremony during labor. Without retelling the whole story, we went for a home birth and with midwife support, which for us was an edge. Growing up in a family with a father who's a doctor in the medical establishment, and everything else was its own edge, especially again during a time of a global pandemic and health crisis. Doing something even slightly out of the box was edgy. But long story short, the labor took a long time to progress, and I found myself, to quote one of your more recent episode that was beautiful, by the way, I started to stand at the edge of the underworld, and I didn't want to go there because I, misperceived it as hell. And I found all of my stuff come up rapidly in at about hour 25 of labor, where it was my mind going on overdrive, as it was the tool that I so heavily relied upon to try and control and solve and fix a situation that actually just required surrender and patience. And I found myself just spiraling and getting obsessive thought loops, just deep fear. And I had one of those moments, where I felt so out of control. I went upstairs, took a little breather, and I stood in front of the mirror and I just said, if my daughter gets through this and is safe and healthy, I'm going to go and get help. And I didn't know what help looked like yet. I'd never been to therapy before. I had a big stigma around that. I just knew that whatever was coming up for me was not something I wanted to pass on to my girl, and that the man that she needed was not the man in that moment. She needed the next evolution of him, and it was my responsibility to become him. Yeah, I still get emotional every time I talk about that. I'm kind of glad for that too. So yeah, that was moment one. That was the personal moment of the kind of initiation and the call to change. Can
I ask you something on that?
Please.
Just because, you're giving me chills. That's I fucking love it when the universe is so loud, like when it's so clear. It's not just a whisper. It's like, that's a scream, man. But it's like, it's nice because you're like, okay, I'm going to do this thing. And I'm curious, since that moment, you've had 5.5 years immersed deeply in this world. Through aware parenting, through coaching, through teaching, through holding other men multiple times through this space. And that's incredibly rare. There's very few men doing what you're doing in the way that you're doing it. So I'm curious if you could go back to that moment in the mirror and tell yourself something in that moment, what would that be?
Nice. What I would tell him, I'd say, well, first I'd stand behind him and I'd put my hands on his shoulders. Yeah, which already he's feeling deep support from. I'd whisper this and I'd just say, hey, you're not broken. You're way more capable than you think you are. The problem is that you are thinking that you are. And she needs you right now. And go back down there. And there's nothing you need to put on. just be with her and fall into the spiral with her, knowing that in the spiral you can be a pillar as well. She needs your presence and your strength, and you have that already.
Beautiful. Yeah, man. Thank you for that.
Thank you. That was beautiful for me.
So that was moment one. There was another moment.
Then there were kind of those series of things that kind of culminated. The series of things was witnessing other men become fathers in my life. And, I was not the first in my social circle, but one of the earlier ones. But, over those intervening years, I saw more men become fathers, and men who, I'm very lucky. I'm surrounded by men who are, pretty motivated, disciplined, switched on, spiritual, insert term of endearment here, men. And yet many of them were flawed by fatherhood, myself included in moments and actually in seasons, if I'm honest, in seasons, I was flawed by it. And I just it was just subtle noticing of the strategies and the tactics and the mindsets and the orientation toward who I am doesn't work anymore like it used to. And that was confronting. And then it just kind of hit one time, that second moment of moments. I was just driving in the car home from work. I was working at an organization called the Man Cave that does emotional intelligence work for teenage boys and gets them opening up and sharing and having community. And I just had this kind of bolt as I was driving. I'm like, dads need this support so that their boys can have it and so that partners can have that support, because we're kind of the rising tide that lifts all boats if we start stepping up. And that night I kind of thought about it more. And I'm going to share this one. This is one I haven't shared publicly before. I don't know why I forgot about this, but yeah, this is cool. So I had the kind of it was very much a download, and I called a friend and told him about it. And he's a close friend who I really trust. And he said, dude, my whole body is lighting up as you talk about this. And he started saying some ideas back to me. I could just feel my body get so activated. I said, hey, Josh, I actually got to hang up the phone. I have to go and write. And I went on the floor and drew this mind map and then got in front of the computer and wrote like a 12-page, I called it an idea canvas, just with everything about what this was going to be. Customer avatars, the whole thing. I boom, in like 2 hours. And then the next night or 2 nights later, I was still very excited about it, but kind of like some of those nights where I get inspired and write a piece of music. It's like, let's see how to go after I sleep on it. And we were putting the kids down to bed, and we had our guest, Deepa, over for dinner, and she was cleaning up some of the dishes after while we're putting the kids down. And I came downstairs and I was putting a glass in the cupboard, and she just turned to me and she said, Jason, whatever it is that you're here to do, you need to do it now. Stop waiting. You couldn't do it right now. And I was just like, what? I need to do it now. And then my wife came in and I said, what did you tell Deepa about the fatherhood thing? She's like, I haven't said anything. And I said, do you know? She's like, I don't know what that was. And then we sat on the couch and she said, I actually have more I need to say. I said, okay. She said, right now you're in a cage and you're dealing with the problems of boys. You need to be dealing with the problems of men. You're growing out of that cage. You need to break out of it and you need to help men. And I was like, fuck. And then I obviously told her about raising fathers, and I was at the time working with boys. I was just like, fuck.
That is wild. Is that universe being like right on the button again? Hey, that's amazing, man. Yeah, I mean, it strikes me too. It's like you're working with the issues of boys, and ideally working with the issues of men means there's less issues with boys, right?
Yep.
That's so fascinating. And so ever since then, there's been that full speed working with fathers in particular. Yeah.
Yeah. So since then, gradual process, actually. I work with fathers, and I also work with Rites of Passage Institute, which does this work at a broader level. Dr. Arnold Rubinstein and his body of work, and kind of integrate both where I can.
Right.
But yeah, supporting dads, Rites of Passage focus, inspired by aware parenting and a few other paradigms. But yeah, helping men through the portal into fatherhood. And, kind of like to describe it sometimes as early fatherhood. The birth is one element of initiation, but it's just initiation after initiation. And this road is a beautiful road with many potholes. And my hope, particularly when I work with men pre-fatherhood, is that I can sit in the back seat and like, there's a hole there, a hole there, and a hole there. Turn this way. And they can just hopefully make it a little bit smoother and not rob them of their initiations either, which will come, but at least be supportive that when they come, they know it's normal and they know that there are inquiries that we can make and frames we can put on this to grow through it rather than be crushed by it.
Yeah, it was interesting. There was almost a linguistic confusion with me when you said men are flawed by fatherhood, because I heard it FLAWED, flaw, with the accent. And I'm like, that's an interesting, and you're talking about being floored, right?
Yes.
Like knocked out by it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it's interesting with the flaw because it would almost work. It's like fatherhood brings up whatever flaws are already in your system. Like, this is how I feel about being a father. It's a magnifier of everything that was there before. It just puts steroids on it. So whatever flaws are already there, then it's going to really bump them up. And I think what you're saying with rites of passage is that, well, you know, Robbins has this thing of change is inevitable, growth is an option. And I kind of feel about that when it comes to birth. It's like you're going to go through the birth and it's going to do something, but going through it fully, eyes open, not knowing what's on the other side because you never can, but seeing some of those potholes, knowing what might come up, somehow alchemizes it from something that happens to you to something that you're involved with. So with the men you've worked in to create some kind of rite of passage for birth in particular, what actually changes in them? Like how does that rite of passage consciously mark them and have them moving through those early months differently to a man that has gone through the same kind of initiation, but without that forward-facing lens?
Great question. Yeah, I've got a couple of answers. I think the first one is around cognitive framing or reframing. So, there's post-traumatic stress or post-traumatic growth. Both can have the same event. It's our perspective on it. And I think when we begin to recognize that a rite of passage by definition means that we're not going to be the same on the other side from who we were when we began, and that there is going to be that chrysalis phase where we kind of have to break out of the cocoon, that's going to take struggle and strength and push. My hope and my belief is that, therefore, when that challenge comes, we go, oh, I'm in the chrysalis right now. No wonder I feel like mush and I'm trying to push out. No wonder this is so hard. I am at a threshold of change. Okay, this makes sense. The second point on a rite of passage as well is a rite of passage is very, very rarely done by yourself. People have done it. There are vision quests, which aren't the same, but there are, other modalities, but rites of passage are typically done in community. There is the separation from the community or the initiate or group of the initiates before they go through their challenge and set a vision and all of this. But they're done often still in a group. They're taken away as a group and then reintegrated back into community and society and are seen as different. And I think if we can appreciate that concept as well, means we can understand, all right, this is what I need from my village now, my community. I need their help, like tangibly and physically. I need their help emotionally. I need, a big practice I recommend for dads is, which is again borrowed from aware parenting, is finding an empathy buddy, or hand-in-hand parenting uses the term a listening partner, where the concept is we hold so much of our children's emotions for them and help them co-regulate. That for us needs to go somewhere as well. We need to be held. For us men, if we turn exclusively to our partner, while it's beautiful to rely on our partners, and I encourage that, it's not an on-off switch, it's a dimmer switch. And it's like there are moments and times, especially postpartum and matrescence generally, where it might be wise to not be as much of a puddle and collapse into your partner as other times may be beautifully appropriate to. It's not a kind of one or the other, it's a context thing. But having a bloke who's also a dad, ideally, that you can pick up the phone, for extra points, take your baby in the carrier and go for a walk so mum gets a break, you get some exercise in your legs, baby gets fresh air, and call your mate and be like, hey man, this is so hard right now. I didn't realize when people said you'll be tired and sleep deprived, that it would impact every other moment of my life. And I would feel like borderline depressed most of the day and doubt myself all the time. No one told me that bit. And for the dad to go, hey, dude, I hear you. I'm listening. That sounds really hard. I went through a version of that too. This is a part of it. This is normal and it's going to pass. That can just do so much for dad. So much.
Amen.
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful, man. You know, when you speak about holding, I had an experience recently that was quite beautiful. Can I share it?
Wait, yeah.
I actually flew to celebrate the father's blessing of a very, very, very dear friend of mine. And he recently moved just north of Sydney. So we flew in, and there was about 4 guys and his father. His father flew over from overseas, from Europe, and his father is, I think, 70 years old. And the weekend we wanted to accomplish a couple of things. Like, one thing was just to have some fucking fun. Because he's there, he's isolated, he's new to the place, he just moved there, and he's not going to be connected with brothers. And he's a playful trickster energy as well. So one thing is we need to have fun. The other thing we need to do is obviously bring in some depth. And one of the ways we did this is inviting some plant medicine into the mix. And there was just there's many moments, but one particularly profound moment where most of us are outside, except for him and his father and a friend. And a friend comes through the lounge and would set up, a space where you can lay down on the floor, and the rest of us are enjoying the nature of Australia. And my friend comes out and goes, right now, father and son are holding one another on the floor. I was just like, it's just so beautiful, And then when we unpacked it later on, it was literally the father was feeling all the things that in a very specific moment that he could have been more available emotionally in particular. And he wanted to apologize. Like, words aren't going to do anything. So they just laid there in an embrace, father and son, 70 and 40 were their ages. And we're like, oh, that's so good. That's so beautiful. And when you said being held, that's what came up to me in a very real way.
Yeah, now I've got chills. That is gorgeous, man. That is literally the definition of intergenerational healing.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And that rippled out to the rest of us there,
Yeah. So, I got chills. That's beautiful. That is beautiful.
That was a very special moment. And when it comes to this, I'm curious, this being held thing. And you raise a really salient point. It's like your partner should not be the repository for all of your insecurities, right? And especially early on in parenting, you're both going through a lot, but she's going through more. Physically, hormonal, Yeah. So there are times in a relationship, parenthood or otherwise, where you can rest in your partner, in your woman, and it's the right thing to do. It's totally okay to break down if she can hold you, if it's the right time. And of course, there are a lot of times when the best thing to do would to see someone, whether that's a therapist, a coach, a program, or as you say, a buddy, someone that can hear and listen to you. If someone's listening to this and they're in the middle of that early fatherhood and feeling like like they need this, how do they tell whether it's a time to go to their partner or whether it's a time to go to a buddy?
Great question. These are one of those questions that's really hard to answer without giving 1,000 examples. So I'll say the quick upfront thing, which is this is incredibly nuanced, requires your intuition and the specific context of your relationship, the amount of trust and safety you have. It's a sad reality that even the men who, I think I mentioned to you earlier before recording, there's a selection bias of the men who come to work with me that, they get my vibe, they're into it, they're like, okay, they're already on the journey for the most part. Even men in that pocket of community still have relationships that are far less safe and trusting and intimate than I expected. And I'm very lucky to say I have one, and we're still growing. We're not perfect, of course. But I just say that because it can be tempting to go, oh yeah, I want to lean on my partner, and there's actually not enough of a foundation there for you to lean. And
Totally.
Then resentment builds and it gets ugly, and you actually didn't do anything wrong. You just did something wrong given the context. So how do you know, to kind of try and specifically answer your question, how do you know if it's the right time? Well, firstly, have you ever done it before? And if you're a man listening to this and you're not yet a dad and you haven't done it yet, I would suggest wait for a moment where things feel really connected between you and like you're in a rosy good period. and open a conversation, not simply saying, I'm going to lean on you now, take all my stuff, but open a conversation of, hey, I think a place that we could deepen in is me leaning on you a little bit more emotionally. Like, does that sound good? Like, what's that like for you? And just see if there's openness to it. Let's assume you are already on that path. You've already leaned in before. How did it go? What did you get from it? What was it like for her? What does she maybe need afterwards? And then in terms of picking the timing, well, you'll have some past experience to draw upon. But really, like, one simple thing you can do is ask. Just be like, hey, and again, particularly if you can preface it well, saying like, hey, this is a really big period. And I know what you're moving through. And I know that I've kind of shared stuff with you in the past, and it's insert how it was in the past. Happened that way. I just wanted to like check in, like, how do you have the spaciousness right now for me to kind of enter that space with you? Or, do you need that from me right now? Maybe offering the inverse first and just gauging the waters. And then when there's consent, be like, awesome, cool. Is now a good time? Or should we try later? Should we have a bath and do it in the bath? Should we do it on a walk with the baby? And just gentle until there's enough kind of intuitive reciprocity where you just know, you'll know when the moment's right. And even then, again, this is maybe a projection, but as a guy, just go for it as well, because it's pretty rare. And I'll just speak from my experience, is the times where I've done it haven't always felt like good times for me, because I'm frankly scared that either I will stay in it and won't be able to get out, that I'll be emasculated by opening up in that way to my partner, or that I'll burden her. And this literally happened last night. She was asleep. I woke up feeling some stress in my body. I wanted support. And I said, hey, and kind of tapped her. I said, I don't want to be a burden. You've got work tomorrow. Is it okay if I just share some stuff with you? She was like, and again, this is our context, our relationship. She was like, my love, I'm always here, please. And I shared some stuff, and it was beautiful, and we hugged. And it turns out it wasn't the middle of the night. I didn't look at my phone. It was actually the morning already. It was like, kind of when I was supposed to wake up, but I didn't know that because it was like just before light. And our daughter came and cuddled us. She woke up and we shared the night together. But yeah, I know my resistance in the past has been that sense of burden, and that's where so many of us men close down and we self-select out of intimacy. And my encouragement, again, depending on the woman you're with and her sort of constitution, is go for it. It'll probably make you closer than ever.
Beautiful, man. I mean, that also sounds like intergenerational healing right there. And it's so interesting as a man that what we think is frightening and what's actually frightening. Like, you ask most men what they're afraid of, not making enough money to support the family, which is real, or not gaining X, Y, and Z. But you put them out on the precipice of vulnerability, and it's body frightening in a way that's really hard to explain until you're there. And at least in my experience, it's not that common that men get that opportunity, whether it's with their partner or with other men, which makes this work all the more valuable. Yeah. But just that precipice of, for me, what it's like is when I'm like that, I totally go eternal. I want to deal with it by myself. I don't want anyone else involved, which makes it 10 times worse because it doesn't move through and it stays stuck. And people are like, what's wrong? I'm like, I'm okay. I'm just feeling a bit flat. No, I'm deeply anxious. I'm deeply tired. I'm totally exhausted, but I don't have the words or the bravery to put it into context, which is why it's so valuable to have people, whether it's a partner or some other man you can bring it up into. I appreciate the personal story, by the way, especially considering it's so fresh. I'm curious, when it comes to fatherhood, we've talked about it. We have a couple of themes already going here, like opening up, unburdening the emotionality when it comes to men. But where do you find men are most underserved when it comes to fatherhood? Is it that same thing? Is it something else? Or what are another way to say it might be, how do the themes come across to you, the ones that come up again and again?
There was something I saw someone say, so I don't want to steal their line. I think his name's Chris Bale, not like the guy who played Batman.
That would be impressive.
Yeah.
Multi-talented.
Wise and, yes.
I am Batman and feeling your feelings.
Hey, that's real Batman. That's a real superhero. he said something along the lines of most of the suffering that men do unto women isn't through intention or because they're evil. It's due to a lack of awareness. And I really buy into that, particularly in this move into fatherhood. I speak to women a lot as part of the work that I do because I see ultimately them and the kids as the beneficiaries of my work in supporting fathers. And so I'll literally go and we've had this event we've done and probably do some more called The Release Room, where it's a women-run organization where they get a group of women together. This one happened to be on Zoom. I've done one in person as well, where I just say, hey, give me all the stuff. Give me all the stuff that you wish you could say to your partner, and I will listen and just be a kind of sponge. And I'll reflect back what I hear, perhaps a blind spot you might have, and also how you might be able to open this sort of conversation or inquiry with your partner in a way that doesn't make them feel scared or retreat or get defensive, which, is a challenge, right? I do that as well because what it's helped me see is there's just so much that we don't know that mums go through because so much of it is related to their unique experience as a woman and their body. Again, and those hormonal changes, matrescence as a whole, but then also things around cognitive load and house duties and how much mum holds in running a house and how much stress she holds when running a house as a new mother. And for me, that's been a big one that I'm working quite hard, again, particularly for pre-dads, but also dads who I work with, is to literally not shame them, but just be like, hey, full disclosure, I didn't know this shit either. There's a lot of stuff you don't know that mum knows, and she knows you don't know it. I'm just going to tell you a bunch of it so that your awareness can increase. And it doesn't mean that you automatically go do everything now that she's doing. It'll increase your sensitivity to her experience. And as a result, because I believe that men at their core are deeply empathetic and do want to help and do want to step up even when it's hard, that it just opens the door for them to go, I didn't even know I could offer this. I didn't even know it was this hard for you. Hey, babe, got the deck over there. Let's get fair play out tonight and look at all the tasks in the house that you're currently doing and see if we can lighten the load. Let's play that game. I don't know if I can find a woman on this planet who would go, that's a bad idea. I don't want that.
Oh my God, they would love it. I don't know what fair play is, though.
So I don't have any affiliation with them, but now I want one because so many men have bought this deck since I got it. It's and full disclosure, actually, I haven't read the book. It started out as a book and then became a game. The game's designed to illuminate all the range of tasks that it takes to run a household, both tangibly with the obvious things like laundry and so on, but also some of the intangible things or the invisible things like who's the person responsible for writing Christmas cards each year, assuming your family's into that, or who organizes the insurance for the house and renews that, who does grooming and toothbrushing and nail clipping for the kids, which is a fairly tangible one. But if you're not the one doing it, you're like, oh yeah, my kids are naturally short. Oh, someone's doing that. Shit. And so it has this deck and it's very beautiful and, visually stunning how it's laid out. And the idea is you look at the deck and you take out any cards that don't apply to you. So I'm grateful that I could take out the one that says caring for an elderly or sick parent. That's just not in my life currently. So that's out. And then you keep your remaining deck. And then the idea is you say, based on current approach, split up the deck. Only one person can own a card. So let's say it's cooking. I would own cooking in my house. My wife would own cleaning/laundry. And you split the deck up and then you just look and you go, are we happy with this division of labor at home? And again, there's the intangibles as well, civic engagement and cultural enrichment. That's a bad one. I don't know what that means. Points, miles, coupons. Who does that stuff? Definitely not me. Birth control. Who buys it, assuming you use it? Who organizes weekend plans with friends? Who shows up and participates at the kids' sports day? All that stuff. And then it says, which I really like, it says, try and have one person own a task from conception, meaning think about what is required, planning, and execution from end to end so that you're not kind of handballing to each other back and forth and kind of wasting a lot of energy doing that. And so just own it from conception to execution and play as often as you want to a point where you both feel comfortable that you're owning things in the home and being supportive.
I totally know my wife is going to listen to this episode, and I totally know she's going to want that deck of cards. And I think it's amazing. I mean, life is complex, right? Our lifestyles are complex. There's so many things that slip on the radar on both ends, but again, steroids and with mothers and babies and what they're aware of. It's like us and bees, where bees see UV light and about 5 other lights, and we just have no idea that it's there.
Yeah. And I think just to quickly finish on that piece, it's not that the idea is have perfect equality in the home.
Yeah.
It's increase awareness, empathy, and compassion. And also, like, for the dads, a huge thing I try and say is, like, you can parent how you were parented if you want to. I just don't know many men that want that, both in terms of discipline and all that stuff, but also the role of the father, again, not in every family, but in many, has changed, where being the sole provider, protector provider archetype in my dad's generation was way more common, and in his father's generation was way more common, almost 100%, right? And now the world of work has changed so dramatically that the world of home changes too. And again, I'm all for, if two consenting adults want that setup, go for it. But many modern families don't, which makes it more complex.
Totally.
A bit more complex. Yeah.
Totally. I mean, it's a new time to figure out how you want to create the family unit that you're devising. And it's a little bit like change and growth, what we talked about before. You've got a choice. If you choose to have it, there's a choice to create something really new. And I love what you said with not being about being equitable and not about being 50-50, because nothing... I like what my midwife said. She's like, be 100% responsible for everything. And it's a bit tongue in cheek, but it's got some truth. It's like, yeah, I'm responsible for this thing. You're responsible. It's not about getting exactly 50-50, because that can lead to a lot of arguments that turns into tit for tat, right? I'm curious how you deal with this, and I'm not sure if this question will make sense. So there's a really interesting movement in the world of men today where it went from a very clear patriarchal-led women's liberation necessarily importantly coming through. And then men at the moment, there's people like Scott Galway that speaks a lot about this, that we're just falling the fuck behind, income, emotionality, jobs, like all of it. There's very few statistics that are up unless it's suicide and prisons. So when it comes to your work and you're saying like, hey man, have a look at this thing, you don't see this, and most men don't see this. I didn't see it. How do you play with that thing without it becoming an apology? Like without men feeling like, oh, I'm not doing good enough, which is a natural trigger for most men, and that I need to do something. Like, how do you play with that balance?
It's a really great question. And just to phrase it back to make sure I understand, it's how do you expose let's call it a knowledge deficit or a responsibility deficit to a man or a group of men without it triggering their wounds around not doing enough, not being enough, and then kind of punishing themselves as a result?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. Like I mentioned how I leaned on my wife the other night, last night, and I was having a tender day already, and I cooked some, I cooked some eggs for her next day at work, some hard-boiled eggs. And she told me that night, she knew I was in a tender spot. She said, hey, babe, just so you know, you didn't boil the eggs fully. So when I cracked them, I realized like they weren't really edible for the day, just for next time. And I was like, oh, fuck, sorry.
You may as well stab me in the heart.
Well, that was the interesting thing, right? She goes, I know you're having a hard, don't want to say you're having a hard day. And I said, babe, I'm feeling tender, and also you can tell me about the eggs. I can handle it.
Yeah.
Handle it. It's good for me to know, because frankly, I never make hard-boiled eggs. Like that would have happened again on a good day, because I don't do hard-boiled eggs. Like the one type of egg I don't really make. I just need to put them in longer, right? Like, and it's a good analogy, because the deficit there isn't my care. It's not my integrity. It's not my identity as a man. It's that I have an informational and experience deficit, which is I just need to boil the eggs longer. Full stop. Put a bloody time. It's a very simple instruction. And I would say, like, treat it like the eggs for those guys. And this is where it's an even further responsibility, but I think we owe it to ourselves as men, and we owe it to women. It's like, start taking responsibility for your emotional world as it being fully your responsibility and no one else's. Like whatever someone says, even if they mean to intentionally trigger you, it's still your responsibility to clean up whatever mess gets created inside of you. If you're swimming at the pool and thinking about that guy at work that pissed you off because he's kind of an asshole, cool. You're not going to fix him. Fix your laps and your mind there, because you got to swim, and you can enjoy that swim, or you can obsess over that guy that's annoying you at work. That's your choice.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I'd say is, if men are serious about the journey of, showing up for their partners, or really anywhere, it's like, just start with, my stuff is mine to be responsible for. And necessarily, if I want to grow and improve in any area, including showing up for my wife, it's going to mean I'm going to hear stuff that might hurt a little bit to hear and might make me feel inadequate or apologetic. But that's just more of my stuff to be with on the journey of genuine learning and inquiry. And even if I feel like I can't handle it, like maybe just save it one day, or be like, you know what, fake it till you make it. I'll listen. There'll be some truth in what they have to share with me, and I'll move forward. Yeah.
Yep. Separating your personality from the information a little. Like, it's not making you a bad person because you can't cook eggs. You just don't know how to cook eggs yet. And, it strikes me that's what's so important about having other men in this world with you. They can help pull apart some of these tendrils. And I think it's good to mention, we're speaking about the men's role here. Like, if your partner would come and be like, I can't believe you didn't fucking cook the eggs again properly. Like, how could you screw this up? It's just a hard-boiled egg. Now, still, you're 100% responsible for your emotions, but of course, every dynamic is a dynamic, and there'd be work to do there. So it's good to put a note on that.
Yes.
This is an aside. It may not be for your family, it is for ours. Has your mental conception of how many eggs you need to buy caught up with the reality of the eggs you need to buy? Because mine has not.
I'm so glad we're having this conversation. That literally came up this morning. It was yesterday. It was the deli. I was in the shop, and I went to myself, we'd just finished a dozen eggs that day, and I knew we had a whole nother dozen in the fridge. And I was with my daughter, and I just said to myself in my head, oh, we probably don't need to buy eggs because we've got a dozen already. And then I went, wait, we definitely need to buy another dozen. I bought them. And when I opened the fridge today, I had a little yes moment when I started making my eggs, and I was like, oh, we've got so many eggs. I don't need to buy them tomorrow.
So, if there's small wins you need to celebrate, that's definitely one.
Yeah, this week's the egg week. I clocked it this week.
I'm catching up. I'm up to buying 18 eggs at a time. I think I need to bump it up to about 24. And I just realized yesterday I need to do the same for butter. I'm like, oh, shit.
What's with butter and kids?
I can my 2-year-old would just spoon it as if it's ice cream. So good. I'm glad it's not just me on the egg apocalypse. I just want to check if there's anything else coming up from the themes, or we can start winding towards a conclusion. I mean, honestly, I get the feeling that we could easily go on for a few hours, but we've also just, I think, dived into some really rich pieces, and there's enough here to percolate on for a very long time.
Oh, there may be one more theme because I feel the natural descent as well.
Please.
Just getting values alignment between the couple as early as possible is a really beneficial thing.
Between the parents.
Between the parents, yeah.
Yeah.
Parenting, I feel like this is my quote. I hope it is. The only thing more personal to mention at a dinner table than politics is parenting. You're at that dinner party, and you're like, I'm going to talk about politics because this could get ugly. Let's avoid it. Parenting for me is probably the only thing more personal. And I'll paint one little example is, this one's made up, but it illustrates the point. Is you're at dinner and your baby wakes up, and dad kind of sighs and goes, oh, they're up again. And mum goes up to pick up baby and, wear her or whatever. And then the other couple at the table go, oh, I remember that phase. Once we did sleep training, it fixed everything. And you know where I'm going, right? And the two parents hate sleep training and think it's traumatizing a child. Straight away, that is if they keep talking, that is a recipe for the end of a friendship. Potentially. So I say all of that because that's, it's not fine. That's hard between two couples. But if it's between two parents, it's even harder. And I think what early parenting especially pulls out of you, you said it so beautifully before, that it's a magnifying glass, or use the word steroids, of revealing all your stuff that you still get to, evolve through and work on. It's the same in the dynamic in your relationship, and it reveals your values. again, around things like sleeping, around things like feeding, around discipline, around emotion management, which are like kind of massive themes. And I don't think you need perfect 100% alignment all the time. That's life. But the more that we can start developing out, because a lot of this stuff is new, right? What is our view on emotion management with a child? We've never really had to encounter that before, which is why it could be confronting. If we can start as early as possible, ideally before the kids even hear, having some conversations around what our values are, how were you disciplined? What impact did that have on you? How do we want to be with that? It just means things are going to get easier. And again, it's not about whether sleep training's right or wrong. It's just if you guys are on the same page, it's going to make decisions like that way easier and less stressful.
That's so huge. You work with couples around this?
Not yet. No, not yet. I don't work with couples. I think that might be on the cards one day, but it's something I recommend. Yeah.
I remember early on in our relationship, my wife and I forget the name of the book. It's like 12 dates around money or something. And they have these questions that you ask. And it's like, how were you raised around money? How do you feel? And really poignant questions. And it was so valuable to see where we were in alignment and where we weren't in alignment early on in our relationship. And I so get that as a recipe for success with parenting, because as you say, it's politics and parenting that are incredibly triggering. You alluded to this before, but just if you choose a home birth and you're aligned in that home birth, you have to be really aligned, because you're going to get a lot of opinions from everybody around you about whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. And that's leaving aside things like vaccines, whether you co-sleep, whether you sleep train, what you do for schooling, if you don't traditional, like every step along the way, there's going to be opinions, because everyone's been a parent or a kid and believe they know best. So yeah, I love that idea of values alignment earlier on. I can see that as a total lifesaver later on.
Yeah, thanks.
So I have that same good friend of mine who's about to give birth in the next few weeks, let's say. Him and his partner. What's a daily practice that you would give him? Not knowing him and not knowing his context, I'm sure you make it custom to the person, but what's something that would meaningfully change his relationship, either his current relationship or to the child coming? Like, what would you recommend?
Cool. That's a beautiful question. And you mean relationship to the child, not to the partner?
I'll let you take it any direction.
Cool. I kind of want to answer both now. You got great questions, man. I hope all your listeners know this has been beautiful to be interviewed by you so far. I've loved your questions, and your intuition is just bang on. So
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
wow. Okay. So a daily practice with the baby is, it's funny saying this out loud because it should be obvious. Sit with your baby in silence and just look at them X period of time. Look at their face, touch their cute little body, treat it almost like a meditation. But your object of focus for your awareness is your baby's beauty and their eyes and their little coos, because they are going to get so much from that. But you, well, as a man and a father, it will soften you like nothing else can. It's heaven. It's heaven. And then, if you want to tack onto that, you can own bath time. I did with our second child. I did daily massage after, or whenever we bathed. I would then couple that with a little massage. We'd get some coconut oil and just do a little intuitive massage. And it was just a way physically so beautiful. I miss that. I still squeeze him all the time. He's 3 now, and I grab him and wrestle him. And then with the partner, a very simple one is to have a check-in, ideally daily, but as often as you can, where it's a purposeful conversation. That's a one-way conversation. You might set a timer, you might not. And the idea is, I talk to you, let's say for 5 minutes. I set a timer, ritualize it with something like a candle or a song or a cup of tea, whatever it is. And the idea is the only off-bounds topic is anything about logistics or baby or plans or housework. Like, don't go there, because most of your conversations can be around that. It's just the question, how am I really going today? Or you can bring other structures like high, low, buffalo, or rose thorn, banana peel, or highlight, low light, whatever it is. If you're a structure person, you can bring that. But the idea is you talk and they just listen. They don't respond. They don't kind of earmark things they want to rebut. They just listen. And then you switch, and that's it.
It's deep.
Makes yeah.
Simple but deep practice. Which is good because in those early days, you don't have really any space for anything except for simple.
Yeah.
I know from my own experience, if I may just add on to that gazing practice, what helped me was not just gazing at them, but gazing at a miniature part of them, like their toe or their eye or their nose. Like there's something about that took me out of the pace machine. I'm like, oh, that's just that one thing. That eyelash is fucking incredible. Anyway, maybe that'll be helpful to people listening.
I love that. I often say to my wife when we're obsessing over the kids, I can't look at all of them at once.
Yeah.
It's too much beauty. I need to zone in on the curls or the smile. I'd tell you better.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, man, I've really enjoyed this conversation today. I love your insight. I love your purpose, your passion, your direction, your curiosity. And I so hope this touches many men and women that listen to come and reach out for more work.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad we connected.
And if people want to reach out, what's the best place and way to find you?
Nice. Yeah, Instagram's the main sort of social platform I'm on. It's raising_fathers. Or my website is raising-fathers.com.
Great. Thank you so much for being here today, Jason. Thank you for the work you do.
Thank you.